What if I don't want to unmute?
Welcome from the tundra. Welcome to Fairy Falls.
I can't really hear you too well, Christina.
Go to the audio and see what's hooked.
Going through the meeting owl.
There you
Okay.
go. That's better. I don't know. Maybe you're just leaning to your microphone. I don't know.
Okay. Can everybody else hear pretty well?
Yep, better.
It got much better, Christina. I don't know what you did.
I didn't do anything.
All right.
But, okay, thank you everybody for your patience as we got started here. So let's officially call the meeting to order at 7:02. And first up, we have roll call and seating of alternates. So for roll call, we'll start with me, Christina Davis, I'm present. Pam Summers.
Here.
Judy Austin,
Here.
Paul Varga,
Here.
Angie DeSanto is not present. And Keith Lifter, not present. 4, 6, so that's our regular members, and then for our alternates, we have Khalid.
I'm present.
Okay. And Tim Rhodes, I don't believe is present. Hugh McKenzie is not present. Okay, so Khalid, I will seat you for Angie DeSanto.
Okay.
Okay. Next up on communications, there's been a lot of communications. Oh, wait, what's the matter? Oh, sorry. That's okay.
It's hard to manage.
Usually we don't have this many people. But yeah, feel free to wave at me if there's anybody else. So communications, there's been a lot of communications about the budget. We received the budget from the school and then we submitted questions as the Board of Finance and those responses came back and were sent out today. Is that right?
Yeah.
Feels like a long time ago already. So all the board members and alternates, and I believe Catherine, we should have been CC'd on that as well.
Yes, I think I got it.
You got
I
everything.
got it, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
And then the other communication I received is the Region 19 proposal from the superintendent. So I did distribute that at least to the school folks. Send it to you, Catherine and Sherry. I don't think I sent it to the Board of Finance members. But we'll discuss that number later in the meeting. And there are a couple other numbers related to the budget calculation in terms of that I got from the tax collector, the number of fire department abatements. We'll go over that. And I think that's it for communications. Oops. Next on the agenda, we have approved minutes of the regular meeting for February 13th, 2025. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make the motion.
All right, Pam made the motion. Would anybody like to second?
I'll second.
Olive. Any edits to the minutes for February 13th?
Is aggressive constitutional oversight from Congress.
Okay. All with that, with no edits, all those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Full advantage of weapons.
Any abstentions? Okay, great. All right, and next on the agenda is public comment. Would anybody like to make a public comment? And I guess if you're on Zoom, you should be able to unmute and just say, me please. or you could use the raise hand function. Was there any, I'll start with people in the room. Is there anybody in the room who would like to make a public comment? Okay, anybody on Zoom that would like to make a public comment? If for some reason, everybody, I just hope there's nobody on Zoom who can't signal that they want it. Everybody should be able to turn on their cameras if they want to. So I think we're good. Okay. Next up, we have, new business, select women's update. Catherine, would you like to share anything?
The only thing I have to share this week, is that the, capital improvement, projects committee has, made, decision on what we want to recommend going forward, to, the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen will meet on Monday. This is for the 5-year capital improvement plan. And, the Board of Selectmen will meet on Monday during the day to review not only that, but also, finalize our general government budget.
Okay, any questions for Catherine? From the board members? No, okay, moving right along. Pretty sure. Next is Ashford Board of Education presentation of the 25-26 budget. So with that, I will thank the members of the Board of Ed and the school administration that are here. Have some board members, superintendent, principal, assistant principal. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Bob is
And-
online.
Oh, and Bob. Hi, Bob Carroll. Business manager. So what would you like me to put on the screen at this point, or do you not want me to at this point?
Yeah, you can put just the first slide up.
Okay, so people in Zoom land, can you see that? Yes.
And this is, the owl is a little bit limited. So in terms of people being able to hear you, hopefully they can hear you, where you're sitting.
Can people hear me, or do they want me to move closer to the owl? You can hear me, I see a thumbs up. Okay, excellent. Good evening. I am Jane Urban, the Chair of the Ashford Board of Education. On behalf of the Board of Ed, I'd like to thank the Board of Finance for welcoming us here tonight to discuss our proposed budget for FY 25-26. I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge Superintendent Cindy Ward and Business Manager Bob Carroll, who's online, for their hard work in preparing these budget documents and responding to the Board of Ed's questions and concerns as we developed this proposal. Finally, a heartfelt thank you to the other administrators and the staff at Ashford School who provided input on the budget and for their commitment and dedication every day to making Ashford School the amazing place that it is. The proposed budget is a status quo budget, meaning we are not adding any new programs or any new staff. Simply put, we will not be implementing Board of Ed recommended enhancements such as expanding world language learning opportunities to all grades. And instead, we plan to maintain the current programming and staffing levels. I speak on behalf, of the Board of Ed when I say that we remain fully committed to achieving our goal of ensuring the best possible education while being fiscally responsible to taxpayers. And we strongly believe that this budget does just that. To wrap up, I'd like to make one key point and one request. First, the key point. For many years, school staff has been asked to do more with less, which is unsustainable. Our approved budget increases for the last 4 years.
Oh, maybe just hold on a second. We're having technical discussions. We're okay? Okay.
Our approved budget increases for the last 4 years have been well below the inflation rate, and we were able to get by because we received ESSER funds to supplement the Board of Ed's budget. The ESSER funds are no more, and state and federal grants continue to decrease annually. Our status quo budget request is an over 5% increase, and while that may seem high, we are only asking for what we need. The main drivers for this increase are rising insurance premiums, increasing electricity costs, and contractually required salary increases, as Cindy will detail when she goes through this presentation. Now for my request. The current budget timeline has the Board of Finance making final budget decisions on March 27th, with budget books expected to be available to the public on April 2nd, 4 business days later. I recognize that you need to look holistically at the town's budget, but would appreciate it if you could try to provide a decision to the Board of Ed earlier than the 27th to allow adequate time for us to make adjustments if needed to the budget. This is my 8th year on the board and final, and I've presented our budget to the Board of Finance several times before. Therefore, I recognize that this request will require careful consideration, and I want to reiterate that I appreciate the tough job you have ahead of you. We look forward to working collaboratively with you throughout this process. I will now turn it over to Cindy Ford, Superintendent of Ashford School, to discuss the details of the Board of Ed's budget proposal.
In the second slide. So if I can do that. Does that look right?
Yeah, that's just where it all goes. So these are just pictures of kids doing various projects. You can go to the next one. This is what makes up Ashford School. Little word art, little fun. So as you can see, there's a lot that goes into it. You know, teachers, students, parents, the community, you know, all the office staff, all the staff in the building. You know, all the little programs that go on, all the social studies, we're teaching social studies, science, math. Along with that, and language arts, teaching kids how to read. We're, you know, social emotional learning is all part of that, as much as we may not like that, but it is. Kids, you know, that's a piece of our curriculum that kids are taught how to, you know, interact with one another and how to be kind. And, you know, we're in an age of technology and, you know, so it is important to make sure that we have those opportunities for person-to-person interaction. So this next one are just some of the things that goes into the budget. It's showing, most of this is just showing the growth we have made, and work we still have to do. This just shows you the overall index score. We have gone from a 63.1 to a 67.7, and that is known as the state's report card. So that's what goes into, that information is what goes into your, you know, when you're looking for a home or you're looking up homes, and that's all part of that data. The state's report card goes into, you know, real estate information. We are on year 3 of an implementation of a new math program. We've remained pretty steady on the index scores. It's just important to note that what the state average is, and we are above the index score in math for 60. It was pre-COVID 63.1. This just shows the amount of work that our staff have and administration have put into math, and you will see reading, language arts also. Implementing new programs is a huge undertaking for a staff. It takes a lot of planning. You have to really look at the program to see how it implements into your, you know, teachers have their styles and the way that they want to teach, and we never want to take their creativity away from them. We want them to be creative. That's why they went into what they went into. They want to interact with students. So a program needs to be carefully weaved into what they do on a regular basis. So it takes lots of summer planning. It takes lots of, you know, professional development days. So this is just showing you that their hard work is paying off. We are making gains. We are making headway within the building. One of the hugest things, not only were we implementing math, we also had to, due to state regulations, had to implement a new reading program, which we were due for all of these, but again, both of those programs were done not asking for more money from the town. So we were able to adhere to the state guidelines by creatively using what we had that included ESSER funds. One program can cost you up to $100,000. So it's a huge, like I said before, a huge undertaking. We're on year 2 of the new reading program. The social emotional curriculum is constantly being updated. And one of our gauges of how that is going is how students are behaving or interacting socially with each other and with their peers in the classroom and adhering to school standards. So we are seeing a 5% decrease in referrals. So office referrals is one of those data points we use. I will also state that when people come into our building, I invite you in anytime. One of the main things that is a huge asset to the school is the welcoming environment. The building is kept up to date, is kept nice, bright, clean. That's all the staff work on that. You've got your custodians, you've got your kitchen staff. This takes, when you talk about it takes a village, it truly does. And community members that come in, it's a friendly environment. People say hello. I can't tell you how many new families come in and are like blown away with how friendly everybody is, starting in the front office staff to when they take their tour, anyone that they come across says hello, introduces themselves. That's huge. It may sound minor, but it's huge, and it's due to the community that is within that building and the greater community in this town. We love it here. We teach here and educate here for a reason. We're all dedicated to this town. So you can go ahead. These are just acronyms that you will see throughout the document that you can reference. So I won't go through each one, but you will see that's a good page to take out. And if you're confused on any of because we do use a lot of jargon, and we apologize. Go ahead. So this is just the major expenditures. Obviously, the salary increases, that is always due to contractual increases, benefit increases. A lot of your questions were around whether or not why are there increases in certain lines, and a lot of them were in the medical. We do our best to make a best case guess of what will be next year. So what we do for the budget is we budget for currently what we have. And because we don't want to add additional funding in if we're not going to need it. So that is, how we do that. So sometimes staff drop, sometimes they add family, sometimes they might, another family member might have better insurance, but doesn't want the whole family on it or something. So they might have 2 different insurances. There's many, many things that can happen within a family that drives whether or not insurance is taken. Maintenance is a decrease. There has been a ton of work done on the building throughout the years. And then supply increase is 3.19. So a lot of the supplies, any supplies that we could put through ESSER funds so that we were not putting it towards the town, we did that so that there were less. We were dealing with huge inflations. So we really tried hard over the past few years to stay at a lower budget increase. Sure. Before we move on, I just want to mention that there were questions submitted by the Board of Finance to the Board of Ed that we provided responses to. I assume they'll be part of the meeting minutes. But they have a lot of details about the insurance costs and changes. There were a lot of questions about that submitted by the Board of Finance, and there are a lot of details in that document. So if you have any questions, look at that. But one of the key challenges is, we have our budget process and the open enrollment for insurance is in May after the budget. So as Cindy mentioned, we do our best to estimate on current enrollment and coverage. But during the open enrollment, obviously, people can elect to take the coverage or change from single to family or make those kind of changes that can have, in some years, pretty substantial swings in what we budgeted versus what the actuals turn out to be at the end of the year, because the open enrollment does not happen until after the budget is already approved.
The next slide is just current enrollment. And we take our enrollment as of when we're creating the budget. Because it fluctuates. So if you go out on state reporting, that number might be a little different because we take the real data from our Power School, which is our data house. It's just kind of showing year to year, we've remained pretty steady. A second grade teacher last year did retire. One of the things that the Board of Education felt was important was computer science, technology teacher. And although they also want world language in the early grades, world language teachers are really hard to get right now. And so we kind of put the computer science teacher in there. She is housed in our library. She teaches all kinds of computer skills to all the grade levels. To learn about technology in a safe environment. So that is why I have that asterisk next to the 10. We've remained pretty steady. Just so you know, what we do is if one year you've got a pocket of a large, here's another way our staff are amazing, because there's always somebody that will say, I'll go with the class to the next grade. So if we have a pocket, because we're a small school, we have these pockets of larger classes. So we, together with the board and the community, because we did do a survey that the community says small class sizes is very important to them. We feel especially in those younger grades, where you're teaching very new skills of reading and math, and social interaction, science and all of those things. But we move teachers according to those pockets. So a teacher might be a second grade teacher one year because we need 3 second grade teachers. But that pocket is moving up to third grade, and until we feel that grade level is maturing, is doing well and grasping the material, we will continue keeping them 3. Or if we have a large pocket coming out of kindergarten and we think that first grade is really gonna need 3 classes, they were 2 last year because it was a smaller number, we will move those teachers that way. So although you're seeing, and that's kind of why we do that, the groupings is because of the large, it can fluctuate how many students are in each class. But we will, if it's a really small class, we will make them 2 classes rather than 3. You can go ahead and go to the next one. This is just our intervention and specials teachers. You'll see that the library, media, computer science. So it was added this year. And we would like to continue it. We currently have, so these are what is through our budget. Because we do also have a world language person that teaches. Holly, can you help me? What grade levels? Yeah, Not the strata,
She does a conglomeration of grades.
grades.
Right now, she's in sixth grade, she does fourth grade, she's also in second grade. She sees different, and during different trimesters, she'll go to different grade levels and work. So she's really, we're trying to get her to be able to be in all grade levels.
And she did an awesome presentation at our last Board of Education meeting, January 30th, I believe. And if you go out and take a look at that, it was great. It just showed it's just introducing different world cultures and things like that. She does a great job. Kids love her. Next one. This is our special education support. So for years, we were looking for a school psychologist. We finally got one last year. Which is where you'll see a decrease in outsourced psychology. We had to, last year, we needed testing for the state. We have to, for special education, do testing every 3 years. And then anyone that is, suspected of having a disability, we do a huge array of testing. And that is all federally binded by IDEA, which is our Individual with Disabilities Education Act. And that's a federal law. So we now have a school psychologist, so that line item went down and it was moved to school psychologist for last year, which was great. We have 5 special education teachers. 1.25 of those special education teachers are not in our current budget. They are in the grant that we received from federal government called IDEA grant. That's it. Our school counselor does a lot of work with our transition to high school. So we have to, prepare our kids to all the high schools come in and do presentations, and she organizes all of that. She's doing a career fair at the school. She does a lot of work with 5 through 8 on, future, what are the kids thinking about and where would they like to go? And she supplies support for them too.
That's the school counselor that you're talking about?
Yes. School social workers, there's one in the older grades and one in the younger grades. A lot of that is towards special education. But they also see other kids too. You can go to the next slide. This is just a rundown of what we have. Central office and our front office, just the listing of staff. You can go to the next slide. This just outlines our community survey results. We put the community survey not only out to the school community, but we also put it out to the community through our citizen, thank you. So this was what the top 3 community asks were: keep small class sizes, keeping the after school programs, which are not the after school care. This is the programs that the kids do. They have all kinds of clubs and things that meet after school, and foreign language in the younger grades. Our response was creativity of moving the teachers around larger classes to keep academic instruction smaller, and participate in a program to have an Arabic teacher provide cultural enrichment to our students. So. This is just an overview. A lot of times, this is one of the questions I have historically gotten from the Board of Finance. Our current is 22%. Special education is of the total budget.
Can I interrupt you and ask a question?
Yeah.
About special ed, because there was a big, some big news in state with the announcement of some additional funding for special ed from the the state. Do we know, I mean, the article that I read made it sound like towns are gonna get money for this fiscal year? And
Possible.
do you know, is there, I wasn't able to find a town by town breakdown.
They haven't done one yet.
Okay, so it's
The-
40 million and we just don't know how much.
Right, because they need to figure out, is it going to go towards our rescs? To provide more support for each town at a, either a severely discounted or, at cost. There is also talk about one of the large special education costs is outplacement, and you all saw that and it was flagged in one of the questions. How many students are outplaced, and we only currently have one student outplaced. But it's very expensive to outplace a student, so you do want to keep your students in-house. But sometimes you can't, and you have to send them out of district. But currently, that is our total for special education programming. We try really hard to meet the individual needs of our students. And I wholeheartedly believe it's the interactions they have with our staffing. The adults in the building are just amazing with them.
So again, I know it just came out today, the funding, but is there any talk of what that impact would be? If we got additional
It'd be
funding? And
asking-
again, this is for this fiscal year, so it's not
Yeah.
impacting
Next year. We won't feel, so next year's budget will not be affected by that, but the following year's budget may be.
Okay.
So, I don't know about this fiscal year. I really don't. I know that it's targeting the outplacements. Giving relief to some of the school districts that are just being overwhelmed with the high needs of students and not being able to handle it in-house.
Do you know, so the 22% number of our budget that's special ed, how does that compare to other districts? Is that
What I was just gonna
high,
say
low?
was that on a recent board chair call that I was on, a board chair from another town mentioned that they have one student who represents 15% of their total school budget. So the costs,
Jeez.
I think, are very difficult to compare across districts because they're so specific to student need that I don't think there's like a standard. Cindy obviously knows more than I do, but I mean, when we were on this call, it was in reference to the excess cost reimbursement from this being lower this year than what people had expected. And the chair of that community mentioned how extra challenging it was for them because that's just one student that they have in their district, and that's 15% of their total school budget. And then to get less, a lower reimbursement was a big hit.
Yeah, for a huge push in legislation this year, the fact that you are seeing special education costs being discussed. As director, we've seen this coming, but it has gotten to the point where. But the school budgets are going back to towns for more money. Because they're in the red, because kids move to their town that were outplaced, and you keep that outplacement, to see what you can do if you can bring them back, because you might have different programming in the new school, but it's hard to say. I know it's a huge discussion in this area, so that there's some huge needs. Next. So salaries, certified, non-certified, a big driving cost. Is 61.83 is the overall operating budget, is our people. And I don't know, I don't know how you can put a dollar or a percentage on people. They're just, I can't say enough. Our special ed costs are just in general, in the building, the people make all the difference. It's those relationships with the kids. So this is a huge part of the budget. You can go ahead. And benefits, 10% increase is what they're saying right now. We will not know until April or May. For final numbers, it's usually May. So open enrollment. It's an interesting thing with insurance that I think you all should know is May. So we are making our best guess, like I said earlier. So what open enrollment means is you all work in companies or work. If you hold your insurance, you know that means you can choose to go on to their insurance. Well, that's when it is May. So, we don't know until after that is set, that what our budget will actually look like. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Why does it say 10% there and then 8.5%?
that's 8.57 in the overall budget.
Okay.
That would be enrollment changes.
Thank you.
I don't get it. Sorry.
There's a 10% premium increase that's predicted. But in addition to that, there are enrollment changes. So based on our data for this year, somebody may have switched from single to family, family to single. Somebody may not be taking insurance anymore. So it's all of those things that we learned after the budget was developed for this current year that we're in right now. We're using those data to make decisions for next year and project. So we're projecting based on the current enrollment and coverage that people have. And then adding in the 10% premium. So it's possible somebody who had family coverage last year switched to single coverage, or somebody that had A coverage no longer takes a coverage, either because they're a new employee or they had a change in their situation. Those things all would have happened after last year's budget was approved. So we're estimating based on our current data, and I hope Bob is nodding. We're estimating based on our current population, what people are taking. So any of those changes are reflected based on what we have right now. So it's a 10% increase. Is the premium increase? Doesn't necessarily mean a 10% increase in this line item, because somebody who took insurance either could have stopped taking it or could have switched from family to single coverage.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like a variety of factors that go into that one number.
Right.
Retired,
Right,
left,
right, retired or left, or, yeah.
and
Somebody
who took their position might have not be taking insurance because they have insurance other ways.
While we're on the topic of.
May I ask?
Sure. Let me ask mine first and then we can, Catherine. There was a note in the question and answer document, number 15, and it mentions comply with state reporting, medical, dental, blah, blah, blah. And it just mentions one for retired staff, covers one former teacher, and forgive my ignorance, but are we insuring retired teachers?
Yeah.
Like, what's that about?
This is an old thing from an old teachers union contract that people who are covered under it have to be grandfathered in. And at this point, there's only one teacher. That has been eliminated from the AEA's union contract that we have. But when it was eliminated, it was decided that they would go, obviously somebody retired expecting that they would have, insurance coverage through Ashford School. And so those people were grandfathered in because of the contract that was in place at the time that they retired. So at this point, I think when I started in the Board of Ed, we actually had 3 people. And then now we're down to 1. And I believe when they hit, is there something like when they are eligible for
Medicare, 65,
Medicare.
Medicare.
And they go up. Is that right, Bob?
Right now it's 65, it would be Medicare, yes.
Right, okay, so yeah, so that teacher can stay on the school plan until they turn 65, then they go up. So at this point, there's only one
And it's
person
one
left.
person.
Yes. But that is a grandfathered thing that no longer exists in the union contract.
Gotcha. Catherine, what was your question?
Mine actually relates to the other thing we were talking about, on the 10% increases, it's really a 10% increase. A 10% rate increase. Versus, as you described, the number of people actually being insured. It's because we're using the same 10% in the general government budget, and that's simply that the rates are going up that much. It doesn't mean that our actual bottom line number is gonna go up the same. Correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Christina, this is Paul. Could I ask a quick question about the open enrollment thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
So two parts. First, open enrollment is in May. Is that something that's set by the state for that program? And then part two, when do those changes actually take effect? Because, for instance, depending on where you work, some places do November, they take effect January 1. Some places do April, they take effect July 1. There's always a buffer in there. So there is some time. I'm just wondering how that's all put together and accounted for, excuse me, in this budget.
The changes take effect July 1. And again, so this is an estimate. This is based on the enrollment in December. And we know that that's going to change a little bit, but hopefully overall it balances out.
So the state sets it because they use it based on the fiscal year. That's what they're doing. So,
Well, our insurance coverage is on a fiscal year.
right.
Yeah, so all school systems are on that fiscal year starting in July
But do they all have an open enrollment in May?
and May. That's when all the bids go out and insurance companies bid. We have a commitment of 3 years when you start the plan. So we started the, is this our first year? The state plan, this is our first year, and we had to commit for the first 3 years. And then you're no longer you don't have to keep doing that for 3 years, but when we did sign a commitment, we signed up for 3 years.
If I could make a comment. One of the things that was great last year is that the school really went out and looked at what we could have for insurance and brought our numbers down considerably last year,
Yeah, because
which helped all of them.
yeah,
Right, and we did not do that again this year because obviously we're locked in.
Yeah.
We can't, but I mean, last year, the state plan. It was insanely
22%.
lower, yeah, than what any private insurer was quoting or bidding for the school. And so I don't know what the numbers are this year, but I would expect the state plan is pretty consistently well below what the private market, private insurance companies offer. So while a 10% increase seems very high, and I sure think it sounds really high, I guess part of me is curious, like, what are these private companies projecting for their increases this year? But I mean, the state plan was less than half of what.
I think it's a pretty
increased last
safe
year.
assumption
Yeah.
that had we stayed on the other plan, it would be outside.
Right.
well, it's so, just to explain the insurance a little bit too, it's so specific to your membership. So it depends. The insurance companies come with a bid according to your claims. Sorry. So you have higher claims, your increase is gonna be bigger. I was wondering when that was gonna happen.
I get when I get a cold, I stop like that too.
Me too, Lori.
All right.
Let Jane do the talking.
You can
Should we go to the next
one.
one?
Yeah. Again, this is just student services. Just to give you. In-house and out, obviously, outplaced. Okay. So one of the questions was about legal fees. And, I don't know how many of you actually looked at the current years. We're way over, due to, so, my eyes are watering and everything. Due to, some legal things that we needed legal assistance with during last school year, so.
Just want to note, Tim Rhodes, who's an alternate, just joined the Zoom at 7:47. Probably note that in a minute. Sorry, any other comments on this or?
No. This just explains your heating oil went down. What we are currently paying. These are all in collaboration with the town. Gasoline. Diesel and heating. So we did subtract the contributions that the town does make to that, those purchases. You can go ahead.
Good
Yes.
question. Chair. Good question. You don't have any propane?
We have propane in our kitchen. Yeah.
So, are you a part of this, like the state contract? I can tell you that changed at the beginning of the year. It's a different company now. It's not AmeriGas if you were getting it from them. Or maybe if they weren't bothering to deliver, we've had that experience.
Yeah.
HOCON, HOCON is the new company this year and their rates are good.
Excellent. Bob, do you know who we use?
I'm not sure, but I do know that we only get a delivery like once every year or maybe 18 months.
Good.
So it's not a significant cost factor for us.
Thank you. Supplies, instructional is also in there too. And I had explained that earlier, a lot of that. We also, we try to pre-purchase for the year coming up if we have monies at the end of the year, just so that if it's an area that we can have, we will pre-purchase in the summer. Some room, so we don't have to come back to the town if things go way over. Okay.
Ooh, did I skip one? No,
No.
that's it.
This is just for pupil expenditure. You know. I think it's important to state that. I know that a lot of times we get hung up on our student enrollment. So even though the student enrollment might be smaller, you still need the services. So you still need the people to be there. You still need your, you know, if you have a math interventionist, a reading interventionist, those types of things. Your psychologist, your social workers, all of those people, your classroom teachers, you still need those things. It's just over a smaller amount of people. So larger school systems are able to have a lower per pupil expenditure because that's spread out of a lot more students. But I will say that larger school districts often have a larger administrative budget. So, you know, if you look at District 19, who is one school, but they have to have department heads and curriculum people, and there are certain roles that have to be covered. And so that's why you see a larger amount of administrators, but yet their budget, their per pupil expenditure is lower. I say our monies go more towards the students. We also send kids to Wyndham Tech and Ellis Tech. I think that we've been conscientious of the bottom line with the Board of Ed. Over the last two years, we've asked for a 2.89% increase, and last year was only a 0.7% increase, while the inflation continued to be higher, and I had outlined those in your questions, just to show, you know, that we are doing our due diligence to remain fiscally responsible. Our teachers, our certified staff are the lowest paid in the surrounding area. I can tell you, I've looked at Eastford, Wellington, Mansfield, all of the surrounding towns. Don't tell them this. I know. They could go other places and make more money. They stay because it's of the community. They love the community. They love the overall community, and they love the school community. That's why our staff stay. And I think that that's very important to remember. And when you start, you know, I'm very careful and conscious about starting to talk about cuts to people, because it is very nerve-wracking, and it does a lot to the morale in the building. It makes people start worrying, it makes people start stressing, and it's not good for building morale. If you've been around for a few years, you saw what building morale can do to a building. We had a mass exit when morale was down, and we lost some very treasured, excellent quality teachers. But they were like, why stay if my stress level is higher and I could go somewhere else and make, you know, $5,000 to $10,000 more? I mean, that's the reality of it. We did get one back. Very happily came back. You know, we've combined administrative jobs when people have left after the budget process. We don't hire just because it's in our budget. We hire if we need it. Or we move the position to a position that is felt by the Board of Education and your team of administrators feel in collaboration with the teacher. It's really important to stress that, yes, we collaborate with the Board of Education, but Polly, myself, and Dave, and Bob, we're not sitting in a room by ourselves making these decisions. We have discussions with the unions. We have discussions with teachers. If a grade level is going to be affected by the movement of, you know, say one grade level is expecting a low enrollment, well, we have a meeting with them and we discuss, what do you guys think? And we're all, you know, logical people. We know that somebody will need, you know, will move, and it's often, yeah, I'll move with this class, or, you know, those discussions are happening. And I want to stress that nothing is done sitting in our offices or at a board meeting without taking consideration of, you know, committees or groups of people, because they're the ones that deal with the students on a day-to-day basis. They know what the needs are way more. I can look at data. Data is a number. It's not the personality. It's not the needs that they have coming into the building. It's not, it's not their learning style that a data point talks about. So that's another piece that I think is really important. I know your jobs are hard. I just am trying to stress that when we are coming to you with this number, it's truly nothing that is, above and beyond that what we need. And, over the years, I think you've all watched huge cuts being done without people going. Those cuts, they're not there. We cannot cut without cutting people. And so, I just, it's an important aspect. Yeah, we might need to be able to find something that we can go without or something like that, but it's not, it's not a percentage, that's for sure. So, I just, it's important. And, I know your charge is to keep taxes lower. No one wants their taxes to go up. I completely get that. And I empathize with your charge. Our kids deserve to receive an education that allows them to be competitive moving into high school. We look at what goes on in other towns. That's another piece of this. I meet on a regular basis every month with the area superintendents. It's important that our kids go to District 19, but not only District 19, Wyndham Tech, Ellis Tech, and they're competitive with other kids, that they have the same opportunities that other communities in our area are giving their kids. So that's my plug for this budget that we've put forward. And it doesn't come, there's a lot of line by line with the Board of Education. I mean, they're voted in their positions to do a job and they do it. They go through, they ask the questions. We have regular conversations about things that, where could we, cut or where could we do things creatively. One last thing that I thought is also important over the past 3 or 4 years, the amount of projects that have gotten done that didn't need to go to capital, didn't need to depend on our CNR monies or our non-lapsing monies. We were able to do a lot of projects because of our ESSER funds that were freeing up money within the budget. And I just kind of wanted to go through some of the things that has been done at the school with the minimum increases on tax dollars. Underground storage tank came out of non-lapsing fund split between the town CNR and the school's non-lapsing fund. Hooked up a generator to the school building to transition automatically when power goes out. And I'm not saying that these were this year, I'm just saying over the past few years. Through budget, that went through the budget in 2023 at the end of the year when money was available. Updated the mechanical and air handlers on the building during the roof project. We didn't think that it made sense to do a new roof, and then when the capital could do these air handler units that, or if the school could do them one at a time, why put on a new roof and then put holes in them? So we made sure that we did that with that project, and that was funded through the non-lapsing fund. A new freezer through our own cafeteria funds. A cement pad was put for that freezer. That freezer was from the 70s. So it was on a dirt floor. So we had to put a cement pad down. That was paid through end of the year leftover monies. White panels throughout the building that were on the outside of the building have all been replaced. What would happen is during huge windstorms, they were these really thin, sheet metal, which during recess, that's where some of those panels were. They would come off, you know, or we would come in the morning and there would be a panel laying on the floor. Sheet metal's heavy and sharp and thin. So due to safety, we fixed that, replaced with thicker insulated hard material. We redid our gym floor, which would have needed to be done in a couple of years. We did it early because we knew ESSER funds were not gonna be around to the relief of the school budget, so we did it then. 2 pieces of playground equipment, just for more areas for kids to play on. The older kids often in the back playground, there weren't enough swings. Kids love to swing on the swing, so we put in more swings. Updated the wall between the gym and the music room. This paper was falling off, so we painted it. We took the paper down and painted it. Wasn't a huge expense, but those are just things that we were doing with monies that the taxpayers had approved for the school. And not only that, the projects for the students were new math program for the whole school, new reading programs for grades K through 2, grades 3 through 6, new science programming, new world language programming, new program to teach skills and technology and safe technology use, new uniforms for the sports, updated social emotional programming, art storage for clay, musical instrument, robotics. And what I'm trying to show is that it didn't go to a pet project. It wasn't our, you know, the administrators or the Board of Ed saying, oh, this is where the money should go. It was put out to the teachers, it was put out to our building custodians and building maintenance to see what's on the to-do list that we could hit now while the school has this extra, you know, kind of a cushion. And that's how we did it.
I should just clarify that ESSER funds very specifically could not be used to fund general day-to-day activities in the school. So, what Cindy's highlighting is how the school was able to take advantage of those funds to do things that would have normally come out of the town's budget in a way that complied with the requirements of how those funds were used. So we couldn't use them to, I don't know, I'm gonna think of a good example, but the day-to-day Board of Ed required activities that needed to be funded by the town, we couldn't supplant ESSER funds in there and say, okay, now we're gonna pay Cindy's salary with ESSER funds. That's not how it works. There were very specific rules on the grants, which is why it seemed like it freed up money, because we couldn't use it for certain things that would have maybe reduced our budget in other ways. So instead, prioritized not using it for any staff, unless absolutely necessary to offset something like a grant or whatever. A lot of towns hired people through ESSER funds, and then when their grants were done, had to lay them off, which is not only detrimental to morale and to those individuals, but you had then pay unemployment and you have additional financial liabilities. On top of that, you know, the building is the town's, but we have a real commitment to keeping it safe and nice and operational. And so we've made an effort to prioritize things that would be of a benefit to the school children, to the school community, but also to the town's budget ultimately, because we were able to use those ESSER funds. And again, just so people don't think, oh, you were doing all these, you know, outside projects that maybe could have waited or whatever. The ESSER funds very specifically could not be used for things that normally had to be covered by the Board of Ed's budget. So I know some of those projects went through the building committee for discussion, and then it was agreed that the school would cover those rather than going through the town building committee process. So again, the administrative team worked with the town building committee, didn't just on their own decide, you know, hey, we're gonna do a whole bunch of stuff. It was really a collaborative process. So just to clarify, because I know not everybody's well-versed in what the ESSER funds could and could not be used for, but, you know, we couldn't have eliminated our certified salary budget for a year because of that, that's specifically prohibited.
Right, and one of the areas that ESSER funds were able to be used was learning loss, so anything to do with learning loss, so you can put technology in there. So we did purchase a lot of technology over the past couple of years. There's these things in classrooms called smart boards. They're large boards that kids can touch or teachers can touch and they work. We updated a lot of those because those were all aging out. We did that through the budget. And if we couldn't, we would try to be as creative as possible to make sure that our plan, that what we put forward, so we would have to rewrite the grant on a regular basis so that the state could see what we were doing. That's another thing. So when we decided to do certain things with the money and we wanted to put it into ESSER grant, we had to free up money, we had to write to the state and the state had to approve it so that we could do the project. So there was a process there too. And, so one of the large expenses that is increased is you will see, the, software. There was a question about that, and the software is learning loss, and there were two big, it's called Dreambox, and, MobiMax. Dreambox is math related and language arts for 6th grade. They're expensive, but they're quality, to get to some of those, skills, extra practice for kids for skills. That the hope is that it'll show up in our SBAC scores,
If I could make,
which goes towards our report card.
if I could make a comment.
Sure.
One of the things that I've seen over the last few years in particular is so much more attention to the building itself. Keeping those, making those repairs, making those investments in the building. That wasn't like that a number of years ago.
Yeah. Well, there, in 2016, there was a big plan that was put forward, and some of these things are part of that plan.
Mhm.
So,
The bottom line, is
trying
you
to,
took action on them.
yes, trying to tick things off without needing to rely on the taxpayers to keep that building good and operational. So we don't want to lose it.
I do wanna open it up to, the board members, if you have any additional questions or looking at the question and answer document, if there's anything that you wanted clarification on. Now's your chance.
I have a question, Christina. For the students, the quantity of students, is that including the homeschooled students?
No, you can't include homeschooled students.
It's not
Because they-
including?
No, they're not part of our per pupil expenditure count for the state.
That's it, thank you.
Paul, you got anything?
No, not really. I mean, the questions were answered. I think that everybody sent in. We got them today. I reviewed the answers. I think it's going to take a little time to look at everything and digest it. There wasn't really anything too surprising. Most of the questions were answered before they did the presentation. And Cindy touched on the ESSER funds and the grant monies. That I was actually happy that the school didn't hire people with those monies because that is a problem. But we'll see what happens. I think we have to take everything into account and kind of talk it over once we get all the numbers. That's just my opinion.
I have a couple other follow-up questions. On number 10 about the after-school program, you said that it'll be funded by the ESSER funds for 25-26 if the federal government approves an extension on the use of the ESSER funds. That's a big if right now. So if it is not, will that after-school program go away, do we think, or will you go and try to charge at that
Here it
point?
comes.
or-
We'll collaborate with the town and before we use the ESSER funds and before we were able to provide that for free. The whole plan was to charge.
It was supposed to be part of the general government
Yep.
budget. And you were creative and you did the work and made it so that we didn't have to do that.
Right. So
So
in the end, it's all.
personally, I have concerns about some of the changes in federal structure that are going to adversely impact a lot of things, and in particular our schools.
I will say that there is discussion about daycare relief. In the state,
In the states.
so. I think maybe we might be able to together look at that stuff.
Sounds good.
Because you're, being a municipal. Going and doing that, that's where keeping it with the town, we might be able to use other funds.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Cindy, I think you told me when we talked that the state, so as Cindy mentioned, there's this approval process through the state related to ESSER funds, that the state had already approved the extension, but it's ultimately federal funds, so the federal government, so that piece has already been, one hurdle has been, yes, covered, but the other hurdle is probably a mountain, not a hurdle.
But I do think it's important to know, because I think people probably assume that the after-school program is part of the school's budget, and it's
Right.
not.
It's not.
And if it were part of any budget, it would be the town, but we're pretty committed to probably not spending a lot of money on it.
Well, how many kids do the after-school program approximately?
We're around, I think, 18, 15, 18. We'll max out at 24.
Mhm.
It ebbs and flows because it's
Yeah.
free, kids
Yeah.
will come and go. We were at one point maxed out at 24 and we went down to 20. I think we're around 18 or 15.
Okay.
I have one more follow-up question, because there was a request for specific numbers on number 17 of different staff salary levels. And I'm just curious, just to put it in context, because I think people might see the highest paid staff member salary.
Yes.
And that stands out, right? But I was curious what the average teacher salary is, that ballpark?
That would be a little difficult for me to answer. I don't have numbers in front of me. I can certainly do that. I have a spreadsheet. So I could knock that out next week and get it over to the Board of Finance.
I think that would be helpful context, just because again, I mean, it's clearly gonna be less than the number that's listed here. I think it would be helpful for people to know. Okay, those were all my questions. Any other board, oh, we got somebody who just jumped in. Any other board member questions? Is somebody gonna say something to you?
I guess
Average
when you
teacher
say, yeah, I know it's average, but the highest paid teacher, so, just to put it in context. So, I don't know if you were meaning that it's high. I wanted to just kind of reference.
Mhm.
Highest paid in Eastford is 104.
Yeah, so that's. super
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah.
I've got Mansfield 109, highest paid teacher, so
And that's not Region 19, that's Mansfield.
that's
Yeah,
Mansfield,
so Region 19 is probably, I'm guessing, higher.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's good context, I think.
Willington is 97,000.
Okay,
That's just to put it in context with our area,
Mhm.
highest paid.
that's helpful. Okay, well, I think I think we can move, sounds like we can move on, because the board doesn't have any more questions. I do hope that people hang into the meeting, because we're gonna have just a general discussion about the budget. I'm gonna take everybody through what we know, and what we don't know in terms of budget right now, and what that mill rate calculation looks like today. And I think that's important context. So we'll get to that. I do just want to say, I think you spoke very eloquently, Cindy, on behalf of the school, and Jane similarly, but I think you guys did a very good job of telling the broader story. It can be very easy to get stuck in the line items. And
Yes.
I think it's helpful for everyone to understand the bigger picture. Hopefully others agree with me on that. Okay. So with that, next, so next we just have discussion of the 2025-26 budget. I do just want to talk about the budget calendar, and I know Jane, you raised the issue of timing. So just to get everybody up to date on what the schedule is. So tonight is February 20th. We have the school board presentation. The next milestone is on Friday, February 28th, so a week from tomorrow. Hopefully there will be general government budget copies made available to the Board of Finance.
And the capital improvement thing.
And capital improvement. And then we'll do a similar process, Board of Finance members, where we'll basically take the weekend to submit questions by Monday, March 3rd. And then again, Catherine and the Board of Selectmen can come prepared with those answers. So, you know, I think it's helpful, just people aren't having to answer things on the spot. Have a little time to do their homework. So the formal presentation of the general government budget, along with the capital improvement budget, will be Thursday, March 6th. And then we have, as a board, 2 meetings where we sort of have planned to review budgets and seek clarification. And then the deadline that we put in this calendar to make a decision is March 27th. But as we heard this evening from Jane, the Board of Ed chair, that puts them in a pickle if we make our decisions at that very last minute. So I certainly hear that concern, and I hope the board members understand if we can get real serious. Probably that March 13th meeting. To make some decisions to send back to both the selectmen and the Board of Ed. The one caveat I will put on that is there are other elements to the budget that if there are pieces that we don't know, that's what delays things, or if something big changes, you know, which it can.
And we should have the grand list by then, correct?
Like the state budget or?
The grand list.
Oh, grand list, yes. Well, yeah, we'll get to that, but yeah, that we don't have yet, and hopefully we're gonna have that by the end of this month. So that's the budget calendar. And hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Yeah, does that schedule make sense? Okay. And I'll just say too, pleading with the board members, we need quorums for all these meetings, so please make your best effort to be here. So that we can do the business of the town and keep us on schedule. And also, I do want to just mention too, because we've had such crazy weather that, you know, I'm hopeful because I thought we were gonna have a storm tonight, and I was probably gonna try to do a fully virtual meeting just to keep things moving. And so just be prepared if, you know, as long as the whole town hasn't lost power, you know, we should be able to meet on Zoom. If there is a storm. I mean, there are times that we all lose power.
And if part of it loses power, it's gonna be hard for me to be here.
Right, that's true, that's true. Okay, so now, I want to just go through what we know and what we don't know about the budget, if that's okay. Unless any board members have any comments or questions about that calendar and the schedule. Okay, so I'm gonna call up my spreadsheet. I'm gonna just move this stuff out. Okay, Microsoft.
Is he respecting your privacy?
Yeah, what? Hold on. I'm not gonna send data. Okay.
These ads.
Okay. Wait, all right. Not letting me move this field. Bear with me. No, it doesn't want to do it. I'm sorry. Oh, it's like it's saying this is unlicensed. I guess this computer doesn't have Excel on it. Hold on.
Oh.
So it wasn't giving me all the ability to do things that I wanted to do. But hopefully if I do it online, maybe? No, I got a sad face. Sad face. Try again. Okay. Okay, now it's letting me move things around. Okay, just clearing that off to make it clear. All right, I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see. Zoom. Okay. Zoomers, can you guys see my screen, my spreadsheet? Paul, do you see it, the spreadsheet? Yes?
Thumbs up, nods, yes.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so this is estimating purposes only. Don't quote me on any of this. So we have here the number from Ashford School for 25-26, the 5.46% increase. That's 9,110,306. So that's an increase of 5.46% or $471,612. I left general government flat because we don't have that budget yet. I'm guessing it's
It won't
not,
stay that way.
I'm guessing it's not gonna be that, but we'll just pretend for argument's sake that it is. This Region 19 number I got this evening. So the Region 19 budget was supposed to be available last week, but they delayed it for some reason. And we got it technically yesterday. Apparently it was dropped off at the town clerk's office. And I got it by email tonight. So the number for Region 19, because this is one that we knew was going to be a big jump because our share of students is going up in comparison to Mansfield and Willington, which are going down. So the actual number that in the superintendent's budget, which is not final, but it's a number, is 4,228,622. So that's an 11.29% increase.
A little slower on that number, if you could.
$4,228,622.
Thank you.
That's an increase of 11.29% over last year, or $428,943 increase. Okay. So we thought it was gonna be big and it's big. This total number is just adding these three numbers. Grants, fees, and other income, not taxes. So that's money that comes into the town from the state or from fees, all that kind of stuff. We don't have a final number on that. That'll be part of the general government presentation. What we do know in terms of state funding is a lot of our state funding is staying flat. Our motor vehicle tax reimbursement is going up significantly by about $60,000. And our education cost sharing grant money is going down 3.2%, $110,000 roughly. So this number grants, fees and other income. It'll probably maybe go up, I'm guessing, but it's not gonna go up by a lot, would be my guess. But and again, that's not a final number. The fire department abatements. This I got from the tax collector, so this is basically a cost to the town. We give our volunteer firefighters, and this is a statewide program, it's not specific to Ashford. We give our volunteer firefighters discount of $1,000 per volunteer if they meet certain requirements. You know, they have to actually participate, they can't just show up once. This grand levy is just a calculation, I'll skip that. The other big piece that we don't know is the grand list, and why that matters is if the grand list goes up significantly, that can help absorb the impact of increases. But if the grand list stays flat or goes down, God forbid, I don't think we're gonna be in that situation. But if it, like, I think last year it was like 0.1%, it was really small increase. So generally we see pretty small increases there. So I don't think that's gonna help us, right? If a giant warehouse, for example, had gone in this town, we would see a big increase in that grand list and that would help. Sorry to bring that up. but-
It'll be temporary.
So that, you know, that's where development comes in and is helpful. Okay. So with the bottom line, and we have to break out that because of the tax cap on motor vehicles, we have to break out the grand list for motor vehicles versus personal property. I'll spare everybody the details on that, but the bottom line with what we know today, and again, this is still very preliminary, is we're looking at a mill rate on personal property of 37.181, which would be an 8.2% increase. And then if you do the math on what that mill rate would be on the median home, which is valued at about 167,000 I got from the assessor today. The taxes on that home would be about $6,200, and that would be a $474 increase in taxes or 8.2%. And you can see the mill rate and the tax bill mirror each other. So we're looking at right now, without a general government budget and without, you know, some of these other pieces, an 8.2% increase to taxes.
So does general government need to come back here? Come to present? It's, it'll be interesting once we can get those numbers kind of truly solidified.
Mhm, mhm. So I just wanted people to understand what we're dealing with. And that there are a lot of elements that are out of our control. And and there are things that we can control. But there's a lot that we can't. And so we can only, as a board of finance, you know, our charge or our mission is to put forth budgets that we believe can pass at referendum. And so that's our job. Because we don't want to be in a situation where a budget fails at referendum. And that has happened in this town, and it happened last year in several surrounding towns. So I think that means really difficult decisions, careful consideration, and talking to our neighbors and getting a sense of where people are at and how they feel about things and what their priorities are.
I think, it's true, the Board of Finance does have a charge of ensuring that budgets can pass, okay, that they're responsible. But they also, in my mind, they have a broader perspective as well, which is, are we ensuring that we are protecting the growth of our community, the value that our schools bring forth in terms of property values, and other services that we have in town. So that's just another component. But definitely, it's very difficult to get a budget passed when it fails, we've had a situation where it failed 4 times. One time, the first time it failed, it was a tie vote. I'll never forgive the person that came at 8:03 to vote. And then it took, I think, 3 more times before it passed. So I can certainly appreciate the charge that you have.
And it's important because I think sometimes people think that if they vote it down, and I believe that was one of the times, they thought that money could be added back in. So it's
Yeah.
important to educate, the community that monies can't be added back in after, what is it, the town meeting?
The town has spoken.
Yeah, once the town has spoken at the town meeting. The other thing, do you guys take into account any federal relief that might be coming?
Well, that would be in that, that number of revenues to the town, the grants.
Not necessarily grants, I mean, to individuals for tax credits or tax relief from federal government.
I don't know what you mean. Like, people on their income taxes, like their house?
Yeah,
Yeah,
any federal taxes are, when you are looking to get money back from federal. My understanding is they are looking to do some relief there. Because they're looking to move it to states, so that's just something to take into consideration too. I don't know if you guys ever do.
I mean, I think, if you know something that I don't know, please feel free to let me know.
Well, there's just discussion about tax relief, child credits.
Mm.
And things like that from the federal government. Nothing has been set in stone, and I understand that, but I'm also just saying that it is. A lot of the grants aren't known exactly what's going to happen, because states are gonna have to figure out, and towns, how to operate without federal grants, if that's the future. Not to be doom and gloom, because I don't think that that's going to be the future for everything, but just, I do know that there is talks about credits, so.
And when you're thinking about the credits, you're talking about credits towards a family.
A family.
So
Not a
I think what you're
single, I
talking
know.
about is something that kind of holistic in terms
Yeah,
of the view.
The big picture,
Okay, from a town perspective, these are the monies we have available to us.
yes, I know,
And those credits don't really go to the town, it goes to the families that are within the town. And so that's something that's almost too complicated for us to have to consider when we're trying to do the budget for the town, I think.
right, it's just reminding the public to think about that when they
That
go to
there's some other
vote
things
for.
coming for them.
Yeah, and to vote for our, when you're voting for the referendum,
Yep.
to think about the big picture rather than just, the mill rate and what's happening in town, because
Is-
everybody wants to see progress. With progress means, unfortunately.
And as this board knows, those kinds of things, just getting people to understand
It's hard.
what the components of the budget are and why the increases are where they are, and get the information out to everybody to the point where you've got enough people to understand what it is when they go to vote. That is incredibly difficult.
Well, if anybody wants me to bring my spreadsheet to a dinner.
I could have used it last night.
You're fun at a dinner party.
Oh, boy, I'm gonna tell you.
You can take it to your dinner.
I get into those cells, it's really exciting. No, only other, this is my own personal, hobby horse. I've heard repeatedly from people, in this community and surrounding towns who go, oh, I vote down on the school and the town budget, but I always vote for Region 19 because it doesn't matter. Well, it matters. Having an 11% increase matters. It's impacting our taxes. And I'm saying this as a person who just took her son to the open house for Region 19. So, and they did a beautiful job, and it's a lovely school, and that's a big part of what draws people to this community is that we have that high school. It's very well respected. However, I think in some regards, our communities have kind of ceded control. They come here, they come to the Board of Selectmen, they come to the Board of Ed to get angry about taxes. That number,
And was that their first cut? I can't remember.
this is the superintendent budget, so they haven't, I mean, it will likely come down, but I typically doesn't come down that much. I mean, that's equal to our general government budget.
Mhm.
So it's not a small amount of money. And we have a voice in that budget, but it's not here. It's at the Region 19 meetings. So if there are people who are concerned about that 11%, you know.
Let's
that's-
remind us of when that meeting is.
Oh, I don't know what they're,
I think that's on our schedule. too.
yeah, so,
Well, it's also important to know that if they're increasing 400 and, what was it, 78?
Close to 500,000.
And we're 400,
they're 428.
428.
Yeah.
So, you know, yes, we're a little bit higher than them, for the year, but it is, we have to compete in that environment as students. Our students need to be able to succeed.
Mhm.
We teach them how to read and write and do math,
So they can go to high school.
so they can go to.
Or
high
to
school
the other
on-
schools, or to the other.
Hopefully,
Or
be
any-
good- hopefully be
any
good
high
human
school.
beings too. We learned that
So-
school's a lot more than just math when COVID hit, right? So to answer your question, Catherine, so the Region 19 public hearing on the superintendent's budget is Tuesday, March 25th.
March, what?
Tuesday, March 25th. And then they adopt their budget on April 1st.
Anybody needs to carpool, let me know.
And again, I'm not trying to like be like, oh, we don't yell at them, you know, but the reality is we can impact these things and we kind of, I feel like as a community, just been like, oh, well, whatever, that'll be what it'll be. We can have a voice there, just like you have a voice here. Okay, any other comments or questions about the budget process and how we calculate everything? Hopefully we'll have more answers, more numbers filled in, at our next, meeting.
No. You'll have them the 28th, which is the day after your next meeting, right? Or are you meeting on
Well, yeah, so you're presenting on March 6th.
correct?
Yeah, I don't
But
know.
we'll
if we'll-
send you the budget on
Yeah, I
February
don't,
28th.
yeah, I don't know if we'll need our meeting next week. We'll see. Okay, if there's not any other comments about the budget from the board members, I think we can move on. So agenda items for the next meeting. Let me just double check what our meeting schedule is. So today's the 20th, so we do have a meeting on the books for the 27th,
That's
and then our next meeting is March, and after that is March 6th, yeah. So I don't think we'll need the February 27th meeting unless something comes up between now and like Monday from the treasurer, if there's something that needs to happen. But so you may see a cancellation notice about that February 27th meeting, but definitely plan on March 6th. And then those meetings in March for the board members, March 6th, 13th, 20th, 27th, those will be very important dates to block your calendars out, please. So, and in terms of agenda items, it'll be budget related. Remarks for the good of the board. Just thank everybody for your time. Thank you to the school representatives for coming out this evening. I think thank you for the respectful dialogue all around. And think that we're taking the right approach and there's the right attitude in this room, and we'll all just do our best. And so with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
nice.
Motion.
Sorry, who made the motion?
I'd say.
Pam made a motion. Okay, who seconded? Judy, you want a second?
Second,
Okay, great. All those in favor?
aye,
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
night.